position. What I'm always curious about is where the filmmaker might be coming from. So I'm curious about what are your obsessions right now? What are your interests, perhaps outside of cinema? What concerns you as just a human being, and perhaps how that might inform the choices that you make for your next projects, including this one?
Yeah.
Where are you at? What do you like? Are you a very politicized person?
I'm not a very politicized person, but I think my work as a filmmaker is quite political.
Uh-huh.
Even though I think I'm working always with personal materials. I'm usually like working with just reacting to things. I'm not going too far. So I've been working since my short films, like following the same line of this kind of very quotidian situation, family situations.
Mm-hmm.
But since from a point of view that make it uncomfortable, so it could create like a reflection through the mise en scène.
Mm-hmm.
So I like films when they're alive. I'm interested in art in general and in memory.
Okay.
I think first I have a very bad memory, so probably my films come from this necessity or need of capturing something that is going like falling apart.
Yeah.
Some kind of strange nostalgia of a time that is changing so fast. And this film has a lot to do with that, with a time where we were able to connect through nature, with nature, and I think I think I'm very interested in politics in a way that a particular way to watch the world, make it public, is political.
Uh-huh.
So for me, this film is
a
nice
political gesture.
It's a political gesture in a way that I'm portrayed something that seems to be not that important.
Yeah.
That's a very quotidian. So it's like a collection of quotidianity. But what moves me is what is in between of the important things, in these like transitions, like intersections,
Uh-huh.
which are not in the books and not in the story size.
Yeah.
I find very interesting that I can go deeper in trying to capture an emotion and to document emotions. That is what moves me the most. I'm also very dispersed as the film, maybe. Like I'm a dispersed person in a way that I like many things. I like music, I love painting, and so for me cinema is the way to
organize,
doing a lot of things that I like. I think while I'm writing, I'm already thinking in the images. So for me, it's a really like pictorial work. It's not just about. I'm not interested in telling stories. It's more like capturing something.
Uh-huh. If there's two versions of you looking back at that particular juncture in the timeline in your country's history, are you looking at it from when you were just learning about it and not really getting a sense of why the adults might be angry, or?
It's interesting because I think the starting point was really like organic and coming more from my memories as a child.
Mm-hmm.
In an unpolitical place.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have this reflection at the beginning. I was trying to capture a kind of life that marks me outside the city,
Mm-hmm.
motivated with this relationship with the nature, in a life where nothing was given by granted. And now I look back and I see the film, and I think it's very political in a way. There's like a circle, no?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's of course it's a film about adolescence, but it's also about the adolescence of this country, with a lot of pain, trying to restart. So even though the inspiration is very specific, like in a very specific summer, this summer was kind of a transition itself between the December '89 and March of the '90s. We were waiting for the first democratic president to start, so it was kind of a summer of transition, where I was thinking while I was writing the script, or it was the summer when I arrived to live to this place. But also I wanted the film to be timeless, and I think cinema is the less like nationalistic, less. I'm really into this blurry time and blurry spaces. that make it political, but because it make it actual also. It make it that it could happen forever. It's like there is an illusion. You are building a new world outside the dangers of the city, outside the dangers of the politics, and then nature's coming, and you are, instead of the dangers of the city, you are confronted by the dangers of the nature, and you are confronted by your own nature.
Yes.
In this auto-exile.
Yes.
So for me, this film is like a circle where it could be now, it could be like 10 years ago, could be 20 years ago, but I think I wrote it in a very spontaneous way, and then with the time pass, I'm articulating other ideas, and I was growing up while I was developing the project, and I can see it in another way now. Yeah, I don't know, I think it's a film also about the illusion of property, exploring the complex of the relationship between classes, but also about the complexity of generations. So it's a film about all these layers, and I start also with this idea of, I was saying before, no borders, no? Like there's no borders between the interior and the exterior, the nature and the human.
The home has no real doors, no windows. Adulthood or adult world. Exactly.
What is to be an adult? Who are the adults and who are the kids? And and I don't know. I didn't want to criticize. I wanted to observe. And I think, of course, the scene of the dog is the more like radical in terms of how these people has the power to recover a dog from a poor neighborhood and bring it there. And I think also it has to do with domesticate, no? In general, the dog is like the illusion of domesticate. So it's the contrast between these horses around, like are free, and this dog that is, they own this dog. How can you own like a dog? It's always difficult to me to put myself in a context of something. Usually people ask me, how do you feel as a woman filmmaker? How do you feel as a Chilean filmmaker? I think the cinema is really not a nationalistic thing, but of course I feel like part of something that is happening in Chile. It's a very good moment for Chilean cinema.
It is.
It's very strange though, because it's very well received abroad, and in Chile we don't have in the worst moment for the audience, and people is not going to see Chilean cinema in Chile. And I think probably my films are less thematics. Like usually I always have this problem that it's difficult to me to explain what I would do. So this film I was trying to, even now I cannot even say the synopsis of Too Late to Die Young. It's really strange. It's probably what motivates me to make films, because I like when I see a film and I say, this couldn't be like a play, this couldn't be a book or nothing instead of a film.
Yes, I understand.
And so I think I don't know, I like a lot Chilean cinema. I think what is interesting is very eclectic and different. I could relate with some of the films, but I don't think you can put all in the same box. Maybe you seeing from far is different, but being so close, I think everybody has their own personality, and I think after, so while we had a very complex political situation in Chile in the 80s, all the films were reacting more like directly toward that. And after that, I grew up in a very unpolitical generation. Nobody wanted to talk about politics when I was in the school. Now it's different. Now the kids are like going to the street and they're like
they're more politicized.
They're more politicized. But so my films are like me. I think I grew up like in this community. Nobody was talking about politics.
I hear you.
And I think it was a very political decision for me to keep all these politics outside the film because of the same. I didn't want to make it obvious, and this make it maybe more political. The silence.
It manifests perhaps not in the narrative or plot devices or general thematics, but it's sort of like it's perhaps the motivation
Yeah, it's the motivation, and I think I was more interested in the emotional impact of a country that in a challenging. I think it was for me to make a film that is not a film about one character. It was more like trying to capture. I was talking to the DOP and I was saying it's more like trying to capture like a general status of mind.
Yeah.
It's not, and even though the things seem to don't add up to anything because are really like a collection of little insignificant moments. I wanted everything to connect in the same like emotional like trip or like mental status, and that was a very challenging thing to jump from one to another one, and also I wanted the film to be as like open and random as life, like as similar to the life that I had in this place.
Yes.
So it couldn't be possible to make like a traditional structure for.
It feels very lived in. The film. It feels as if the people that were on set were actually physically living that experience.
In a way, it's tricky because it was a mix of a very like precise script that I developed for a long time, but also that the film wasn't in the script. So in a way, I had everything planned, and then I was just like kind of abandoning everything while I was shooting, and I knew that I need to build a real community again.
Yeah, you had those perimeters in place.
Yeah, so all the crew and all this casting was very important, and then it was trying to put like a life, like play to a life, and then capturing all this complexity, and as you say, there was a lot of work in the choreography that in a way could feel like alive and not that planned.
Yeah, exactly.